Okay, so let's sit for a little bit together quietly, please. You can rest your hands in your lap. You're welcome to close your eyes if that's a part of your practice, or to just make your gaze a little bit more inward. And as you're arriving, you can imagine, I often like to say, like your pixels are all coming back, as if you'd been beamed back to the Star Trek Enterprise. In other words, getting beamed back home. So let all the parts of you arrive. So you can be reconsolidated, less distracted. You want to see what's happening? That's okay, yeah. And then if you haven't yet, you can lengthen up through your spine. So there's a quality of your alertness and presence. And then start bringing the breath down, in, and a little bit wider. So let the back of the body also expand with your breath. The sides of your waist. Up between your shoulder blades and up underneath your collarbones. And please bring your hands together at your heart. Yesterday when we were doing our recording for the Dharma library for the prison, our topic is the yama called Arjava. And Arjava means to be straightforward or to be direct. It means sincerity and also the absence of hypocrisy. So to be straightforward, direct, sincere, and to practice the absence of hypocrisy. So when you consider these qualities in your heart, in your body, and your mind this afternoon, let that be something you can breathe into and establish it more deeply in your body. To be a person who is expressing sincerity, directness, or honesty, and that you can experience yourself as lacking in hypocrisy, not being hypocritical. And so we make this dedication today. Let's see how it unfolds for us. We'll chant Sahana Bhavatu together. Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karavavai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Videshavahai, Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karavavai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Videshavai, Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, ma vidveshavahai. Om Shanti Om Shanti Shanti Om. You may bow your head to your heart. Release your hands. Excuse me for a moment. So before the holiday break, the cats could not reach this. It's dangling in the room. Now he's tall enough to reach it. So let me, you're playing music. You were accompanying the class in a very noisy manner. Let me store this where he can't find it. Just a moment, please. No. Where did it go? I think if I just put it in the closet, he would be trying to get in the closet right now, the closet behind me, and then you'd have to listen to that noise during class. Okay, so we're going to start with a reclined sequence, and then we'll come up to standing. Let me switch my camera so you can see from the other side. There we go. So please come back to lying down on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. And you can have a blanket under your head if you prefer that. It's not required, but you're welcome to do it. And with the knees bent and the feet flat on the floor, place your feet just so that they're hip distance apart. And check that you've got room overhead for both arms to go overhead. And you have room out to the side for the arms to go out as well. And then start by placing your hands on your lower belly. And let your attention start to come down into the pelvic basin here. So if you pictured the pelvic basin as having 4 directions, much like we have north, south, east, and west, let's call south the pubic bone and north the belly button. Therefore, I'm going to call the right hip, I'm going to call that one west, and the left hip, I'm going to call that to the east. Okay, so as you inhale, tip your pelvis to the south towards the pubic bone. And then exhale, roll towards the north, and draw the navel in towards your spine. Inhale, tip to the south, so towards your pubic bone. Exhale, roll towards the north, pubic bone towards your navel, the navel towards the spine. Do that simple, familiar action one more time. And see if you can now find the center between north and south. So you're kind of at the equator. And roll down to the east. So your left hip goes down and the right hip comes up. And then roll across to the west. So your right hip and the back of the sacrum can press down. The left hip will go slightly up, a little bit like a seesaw. Let's go to the east. And to the west. One more time to the east. One more time to the west. And then back to neutral, back to the center. Now I'm going to ask you to try those same actions using your breath, but not using like your leg bones or leg muscles, and not thinking of the bony structure as having to move itself, but rather the interior of the pelvis and the belly doing the movements for you. So when you inhale, glide to the south. As you exhale, go to the east. From inside the pelvis, inside your belly, inhale to the west. Exhale to the south. Your movements might be smaller than they were before, since we're not trying to use the bony structure to move, but the bones are being moved by the breath. Let's inhale to the north. Exhale west. Inhale to the southeast. Inhale to the north, up towards the belly button. Let's go northeast. And then southwest. Right lower belly. And once more to the south. And once more to the north. And then find your way to neutral, to the place that is most centered. Cross your right ankle over your left knee. That may change the pelvis momentarily, but then try to come back to these 4 directions being equal. Telescope your right thigh towards your knee, so it's not like your hip is sinking down towards the floor, but more that the thigh bone's getting longer. And let's inhale to the south, using the muscles in the deep abdomen. Exhale to the north. Lengthen your right thigh. Inhale east, which is to the left. Keep the right thigh long. Exhale to the west. Inhale to the south. And once more, exhale to the north. Lengthen your right thigh from your hip out into the knee. And now inhale to the east. And stay here at the eastern border. I'm going to ask you to slowly tip your pelvis and your lower abdomen down to the left, so that what might happen as your right thigh is lengthening and lengthening, what might happen is your left outer thigh and outer shin reach the floor, and your right foot ends up standing on the floor next to and supported by your left knee. This is a variation on a familiar spine twist. Now take your right arm and stretch it up to what we might think of now as the northwest. So reach your right arm on this diagonal. Keep lengthening through your right thigh. And let the breath explore the pelvic basin in all of these directions, in the interior of the abdomen. Now, as you begin to exhale, place your attention in the northwest part of the lower belly and start to draw that in as a way to begin returning your pelvis back to center. And go to the western hemisphere of the belly and the southwest as you arrive back up, and release your right arm and your right foot. Cross your left ankle over your right knee. Press the left knee open so it's kind of more like a telescope, reaching out towards your knee, not dropping in towards the hip joint. And we're going to inhale to the south, so the pelvis can tip, not because you're moving all these bones, but because the inner belly is moving you. Exhale to the north. Inhale to the west. Exhale to the east. Maybe your left lower back will come down to the floor more completely. Inhale to the south. Exhale to the north. And inhale to the west, the right low belly. And make that strong enough that you're drawing your right outer hip, right outer thigh, outer knee, outer shin down towards the floor. You may end up standing on your left foot or going in that direction with the left knee pointing up towards the ceiling. Open your left arm, reach it up to the northeast, reaching up north and east. And breathe into the pelvic basin and this interior landscape in the body. Breathe in one more time, just really sensing, how do you keep the left thigh sort of telescoped out, right? And bring your attention to the left upper belly, so the northeast of the belly, and start drawing that in as a way to return your pelvis to center. Then go to the east and then to the southeastern part of the belly and return your hips to center. And then place your left foot back on the floor and pause. As you come to center, reflect on the word sincerity between you and your body. And as a student of yoga, we know that some of the recommendations in yoga include things like curiosity and presence and non-distraction. Notice the level of sincerity you have for that inquiry today. Now I'd like you to take your right leg, bring your knee towards your chest, take your heel towards the ceiling. Use a strap if you need to for this. And what we're going to do is support the right foot with your hand or with your strap and let yourself roll down a little bit to the right as you go to place your toes towards the floor. You may also be putting a block where the toes are landing, but I'm going to say, let your left hip and your left knee roll up with you for now. So get the right leg established like this and secure it with your strap or with your right hand. And then come into the belly and start turning from west to east. Just going as far as your right inner thigh, sincerely, honestly, without coercion, as far as the right inner thigh will allow you to turn the belly. You can take your left thigh and your left knee with you, but know that however far you take the left knee, the turn actually still has to come from inside the pelvis, the belly, and the spine. So breathe in. Determine where your most sincere, honest end range is. And then place your left foot down to be stable for the next several breath cycles. So you know that sometimes I teach a variation on this pose where I ask you not to tip over to the right and to keep the left hip on the ground. In this case, we tipped to the right to start the pose. And it's possible that your left outer hip will not reach the floor during this kind of variation. But try to sense an internal rotation of the belly, turning from west to east, from right to left. Let the breath become more smooth, more sincere, the absence of coercion. And then you're going to float. Well, let's pick up the left knee, bring it in towards your chest, and roll your left leg back over towards your right leg. Okay, let's bend both knees. Place the knees and the shins and thighs together. Take your right hand on your left knee or place it under. So you can hold your left knee in this extended position, and then turn your belly, your rib cage, and your heart to the left. So in this familiar spine twist, the choice to put your right hand under your left shin and knee is to give a kind of telescope support there with your right hand. The choice to put your right hand on top of your left knee is a different outcome, and you can try them both. My personal preference right now is this telescope action. As you turn your inner belly from west to east, from right to left, and also turn your heart, your shoulders, and your gaze. Notice the quality of sincerity in the breath cycle, the absence of coercion, the fullness of kindness. The absence of urgency, the fullness of presence. Please exhale one more time and float your left arm up towards the ceiling and roll across to the right side so that you can then turn your whole body back to center. Okay, nice job. Let's take the left leg up. You can either put your foot up to hold with your hand, or you can use your yoga strap. It definitely depends on the length of your leg, the length of your arm, the flexibility, the shape of your hip socket. So using a yoga strap might be the most sincere practice for you today. So with your next inhale, I'd like you to start rolling over. Let yourself go to the left so that your left toes will come down towards the floor, or you can place them on a block. Let the right knee come across initially. And then start rotating from inside the belly. You're going to rotate from east to west now, from left to right. And just travel the distance in the inner belly and your pelvis and your spine that your left inner thigh can celebrate. The distance they can celebrate. And as you're coming across there with the lower abdomen, you may have equal range as on the first side. It might be different. You can place your right foot down for stability. Let's invite the breath to come down and into that like fully sincere expression. The sincerity of your dedication, the moment to moment tuning in, your body intelligence having more respect from you, not less respect. As you've rolled your inner belly from east to west, from left to right, now start toning the western hemisphere of the belly, the right side, and float your right knee up. And then bring it across. You can release your left leg to be ready for your right leg as a landing pad. Some of you will want to take your left hand and take the index finger and the thumb under your right knee. And then please twist to your right. So if you choose to hold the inner right knee, you can make that telescope action. And as you telescope your right hip and right thigh towards the knee, turn your inner belly to the west, means from left to right. Allow the breath to become like an ambassador of your sincerity as you communicate with your body, particularly as you communicate with your belly. As you begin to transition, float your right arm up and bring it across. And then roll onto your backside and pause. Let's touch both feet to the floor and just take notice. We're going to bring this up to quadruped and then towards standing. So please come up to your hands and knees. And if your knees prefer a blanket, please use one. Put a blanket under your knees. And come to your hands and knees in table pose. So in this table pose, I'm going to ask you to step your right hand well forward of your left hand. Press down through all of your fingerprints and thumbprints. Touch your left elbow to the floor and reach your hips back like one-arm puppy dog pose. And then shift your shins, your toes and feet to your left. So your sitting bones are also going to be pointing to the left. This means that the right side of your waist should feel longer than the left side. The left side should actually feel a little bit, we've shortened it, like shortening one side of a slinky. Breathe in. And then press into your left hand, swivel your shins to center, step your right hand in, and let's change sides. Walk the left hand forward, press into all four fingers and your thumbprint. Lower your right elbow down. As you reach your hips back, swivel your shins, feet and toes to your right. Lengthen the left side of your waist, even as you're shortening the right side on purpose. And breathe in again to the quality of sincerity. You've already expressed that sincerity by coming to class. Let it go even more deeply into your body. When you inhale next, press into your right hand, swivel your shins to center, and place both hands in table pose. Curl your toes under and reach high into your downward facing dog pose. And in this dog pose, place your feet as wide as your yoga mat, so your feet are wider than hip distance. And keeping both hands, arms, and shoulders centered, take your heels to your left. So you're going to see your right heel coming towards the center of your yoga mat, and the left heel might step off the edge of your yoga mat. Pivot with your feet, legs, and hips. Breathe into the right side of the belly. You can think of the east, west if you want to, but if right, left are easier now, think of the right hemisphere of the belly expanding. And then exhale, use the tone of your belly to shift your hips and heels to the other side. So your heels go to the right and the left side waist is longer. Breathe into the left side belly. And then roll that back to center. And let's put the feet so that they are hip distance apart now. And roll your knees to the floor. And momentarily reach back, please, to child's pose. If you'd like to do child's pose with a block under your head, you're welcome to. If your hips reach your heels and your head comes to the floor, you can practice without the block. If your hips don't quite reach your heels, but you'd like them to, you can press your hands into the yoga mat And reach the hips back more deliberately. And then walk your hands back towards your knees, and please rise up to kneeling. And then come up to standing. The kittens haven't been in yoga class for a while, so they have a lot to explore in here, apparently. He looks like he's tired from his explorations. She might crawl around. I appreciate your feeling entertained and not irritated with them. And so let's place the feet hip distance apart. This is Surya Namaskar. Join your hands together, please. When you rise to stand, feel even just the short practice you've had so far. What is the feeling tone in your body? If you were to ask your body, how sincere does it experience you to be? How might it respond? And deepening your breath. Let's come to the Ujjayi breath now, please. And inhale, hands down, palms forward, rise up. Exhale, chair pose. Inhale, rise up from chair pose. And exhale, Uttanasana, coming forward and down. Inhale, glide your heart forward. Exhale, left toes back. This is familiar to you. Inhale, rise up, crescent lunge. Okay, let's exhale, bow forward. We can call this like humble warrior or airplane pose. Inhale, rise up. We can think of like aspirational warrior. And exhale, bowing forward like humble warrior or airplane. Inhale, rise up, reaching into aspiration. One more time, exhale, airplane or humble warrior. You can decide what you want to call it. Then touch the two blocks and inhale, step forward, heart forward. And exhale for a deep bow towards your legs. Inhale, glide forward through your heart. Take your right toes back. You can savor the familiar, simple movements here. Inhale, rise up in aspiration. Exhale, bow forward, humility. There's a word for that in Sanskrit too. Inhale, rise up, aspiration. Exhale, glide forward, humility. Inhale, rise, one more time. Exhale. And then let's touch both blocks really firmly and thoughtfully step backwards. Downward dog pose. Okay, exhale, glide forward to plank pose. Now in plank pose, I'm going to ask you to press down firmly through both arms. Bring attention to both legs. And then center your awareness in the low belly. And let's think again of north and south and east and west. So from the south, draw up to the north, from the pubic bone to your belly button. Press into your left arm more than your right arm and roll your right hip slightly down, left hip slightly up. Rotate your belly the other way. Press more into your right arm than your left. Roll your right hip down so you're rolling. Press more into your left arm. One more time, strengthen your right arm. Roll your left outer hip just slightly down. Come back to center. Both arms can be equal. And then reach this back to downward facing dog pose. And exhale your right foot forward between your hands. Okay, so that was a little warm up for what we're going to do here with the pelvis and the belly. So come up to your fingertips on both blocks. Keep your right shins vertical for right now and strengthen your left leg. Then as you inhale, start the process of making your left arm stronger. Roll your right outer hip down. Make the left arm stronger. Right outer hip down. It does mean that your left hip is rising slightly. It doesn't mean that your right hip is sinking. Just think of the outer right hip rolling down. So it's like the outer hip has a fascination with the sitting bone, and the sitting bone is interested in the tailbone. Make the left arm stronger again. Now turn your left heel slowly to the floor, and when that feels established, raise your left arm up and make the right arm stronger. I'm just checking how we arrived here in side angle pose. Keep the right outer hip rolling down. You can think of the right sitting bone having a curiosity about the tailbone. The tailbone is interested in the left heel. When you next exhale, begin the process of lowering your left hand slowly back down to that block. And I want you to transfer the responsibility from your right arm to your left arm. Let's make the left palm flat on the block. Take your right hand to your right knee and twist your upper body to your right. So we want the left arm to be the stronger of the two right now, but your right hand can have some force, some wise leverage down against your right shin and your right knee. Now keeping your right outer hip stable, start picking up your left heel. So you're going to pivot the left leg back to what we might think of as the crescent lunge. Now your twist may have more freedom. Raise your right arm. And breathing in, let's exhale, slowly release. You can make the two arms equal again, and we'll step backwards to downward dog pose. Let's try the other side of the sequence. So float your left foot forward between your hands. So this is your basic lunge to start here. And we're going to kind of steer from the inner belly. So let's come to the fingertips of both hands for now and make your right arm stronger. Roll your left outer hip down. So the outer left hip is like, oh, how about that left sitting bone? And let the left sitting bone take an interest in the tailbone. Keep the right arm strong. And then pivot your right outer heel down. And let's float up to the right. Side angle pose. Notice how you got here and the foundation that you had to use to do it. So the left outer hip, I want you to keep rolling that down. It's not that your left hip is sinking towards the floor, but more like as if the left hip, you were turning, like when you turn the doorknob, you're turning the left outer hip down. The left sitting bone towards your tailbone. Your tailbone could be interested in your right heel. Keeping all of that stable, start to take your right arm down and switch the responsibility. So now your right hand can go flat on the block and become the stronger. Take your left hand to your left knee and twist your upper body to your left. So the twist should feel limited to you because we've kept the legs where they were. That means you have to be kind of precise with where you're twisting. Keeping your pose in integrity. Start to pivot your right heel up. So now your pelvis is more like your crescent lunge. Your twist will feel a little more freedom, and you may choose to raise your left arm. And breathing in, follow your exhale to touch your left hand back down to the block. And let's step the right foot forward and come to Uttanasana. Notice your big toes, inner arches, the upper inner thighs, the inner belly. And you can inhale, glide your heart forward, Ardha Uttanasana. Let's bend both knees. We're going to come down into chair pose. Root your heels, raise your arms. Then inhale, rise up, upward hands pose. And exhale, sweep the arms wide. Bring that back to your heart. Look where you ended up. Yeah. Did they say curiosity killed the cat? You don't know where we're going. Here. There you go. Okay, so just checking in with that Surya Namaskar. These guys haven't been in yoga class for a couple of weeks. You can see that. So the work we were doing with the pelvis there, I'd like us to continue that by taking both blocks to sit on in padangustasana. So place them so that you're going to stack the two blocks actually. Pardon me. Like this. And then take a seat. So both sitting bones are on the blocks. And then put the soles of the feet together. So it's a rather tall, we could say, padangustasana. For those of you whose hips are a little bit limited, this might feel like the most freedom you have in padangustasana. For others, it might feel like, wow, you're too far up from the ground, but stay with me for a few moments, please. So when you're on these two blocks, check that your sitting bones do feel well supported. And telescope both thighs out towards the knees. And then come slightly forward. Fingertips to the floor, perhaps. You can gently place your elbows against your shins or knees. And because the blocks can tip slightly, I'm going to ask you to glide forward and bring the blocks with you. And then glide your hips back so the blocks will become grounded once again. If you tipped them, they can go back to the ground. Rise up to sitting and walk your feet apart. We'll go heel, toe until we sometimes call this omega pose, where the feet have a little diagonal like this, but the knees point out omega, like I think in the Greek language, the Greek alphabet. And then come forward. Press out through the inner thighs towards the knees. As you come forward, start to bring the blocks forward with you. So there's a little tip. Try to keep the knees out. And then roll this one back to sitting. I'm going to go heel, toe until you've got your feet flat on the floor and the knees are out to the side. And then again, please come forward and let the blocks tip slightly. So you're going to bring the hips forward. This is a demonstration of yoga, you guys. So when you come forward with the blocks here and your hips are gliding forward, try to keep the thighs telescoping out. It is okay to gently place your elbows against your shins or your knees. And then let's glide this one back also and go heel toe to center. Take the right leg down, Virasana. Take the left leg down, Virasana. You can also say Zazen. You're sitting on 2 blocks here. Rest your hands on your thighs. Let's drop down and see now, what is the welcome that the pelvis and the lower belly can give to the breath? When your breath is able to come back down into the pelvis, into this basin, what do you notice about the level of your sincerity, your honesty? The absence of hypocrisy means, for example, we say we're students of yoga, or we have the values of compassion or kindness, and then we have a duty to live that. What we say, we have a duty to also live it. So let's now take these 2 blocks and come onto your back, please, with the blocks close enough to use them, but don't lie down on the blocks. You lie back, and then take each block on the flat setting. Place them under your pelvis for bridge pose. Supported bridge pose. And now, keeping the pelvis more or less neutral, you're going to have to think of moving the pubic bone towards the belly button a bit. And I want you to level your hips on the blocks left to right. So east and west are equally grounded, and the south should be migrating towards the navel, towards the solar plexus. Invite your breath to come in to the low pelvis, into the interior of the belly. And keeping a sense of the pelvis being stable, please float your right knee up towards the ceiling and the right foot at 90, we call 90-90, and then bring the left knee up towards the ceiling and the left foot also at 90. So do that with the pelvis staying stable, remaining stable. If your hamstrings are not an issue for you, you can take the legs up to straight. Please keep your bridge pose stable at your shoulders, your upper arms. The support your shoulder blades provide the back of your heart. And the pelvis again being stable. So you choose the position for your legs that does not destabilize your pelvis. With the knees bent, you can start to slowly take all 10 toes to the floor together. That is going to require stability in the pelvis from south to north and from east and west to the center. Then you can press into your toes, lift your hips, and take the 2 blocks to set them aside to come down for Shavasana. You can recline completely in Shavasana. I have a cat under my back, so I won't go all the way down to Shavasana just yet. Take the arms and legs out. And let your mind rest down in the pelvic basin. And think of the word Arjava. It means sincerity, the absence of hypocrisy. We say we're committed to certain values or principles. And then yoga asks us to really live those, both during our practice and beyond. Invite the lower belly to be a place you take refuge. You are returned to this sincerity. An internal honesty with yourself. Invite all of the efforts to fade. Welcome your body to deeply, deeply relax. Imagine your body experiencing you as more and more sincere. Your body would experience you with the absence of hypocrisy, the fullness of trustworthiness. Let the efforts continue to dissolve. Release all of the tension in the body to the extent that you're able to. Inviting your mind and your body to remain deeply still. That is the thinking mind. Let's become lightly aware of the breath coming and going. You don't need to make it deeper. When you're aware of the breath breathing you, and sense it as a larger benevolence in life, non-exclusive, benevolent, and also without attachment. This happens to be that right now you're one of the life forms that is being breathed. And gently wiggle your fingers and your toes. And you can bend your knees. Please roll to your side. And in your own timing, you can return to a simple seat. When you come up to sit, try to sense how is it to inhabit your pelvis, how to be back in this pelvic basin. Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, savidyam karavavahai, tejasvimnavaditamastu ma vidvishavai. And join your hands together at your heart. May we be returned home, not just to our bodies, but also to the values and the principles and the ethics of yoga. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Namaste. I will come up to see you more closely to the camera. You had a fun yoga practice? You're back in yoga class? Yeah. How are you guys feeling?
Really good. That's my first class with you. It's wonderful.
I'll say that again.
This is my first class with you. It was wonderful.
Oh, Nicole. So I should have said then, I didn't realize it was your first class with me. These are my kittens. They're 12 weeks old.
They're amazing. I have a kitty too.
They were coming to yoga class